Museum is a place where time does not matter. Looking at the artifacts, we are experiencing the most vivid and exciting moments of history. The program Secrets of Museums on Kazakh TV channel. Water is an important source of all life on Earth. However, any one of us hardly thinks about this when we open the tap in our kitchen. And certainly, very few people are interested in the way it passes from the source to its consumer. The first and the only water museum in Kazakhstan functions in Astana from 2008. The museum displays the work of the city's main water treatment system and reveals the history of its water supply. The exposition of the museum contains historical documents, handwritten albums, maps, work and drawings. All this clearly demonstrates how difficult it was to provide the capital with water. The museum's visitors can see a large map layout, which clearly shows where and how water flows from Astana Reservoir to the city. Seeing the waterway networks, the entire water supply system can be imagined. A separate part of the exhibits contains the equipment with which the chemical and biological analysis of water has been conducted in the past. Some of these antique museum pieces are unique. There are the containers and vessels which have become part of the history of the water treatment system, existing in a single copy. Also, archaic exhibits are represented in the museum. There are everything that was used in the distant past, when the city's water supply system was just formed. Today, when Astana is becoming a smart city, anyone can hardly imagine that just half a century ago, people used all these devices here. Almost 80% of the human body is made up of water. Doctors recommend people to drink up to 2 liters of clean water per day. But we rarely listen to the advice, especially when it comes to our natural needs. We just drink water when we want. However, people began to pay more attention to water quality. The times when people drank water straight from natural sources, rivers, lakes, springs, have already passed. Even in large cities, people once were not afraid to drink tap water. All of us have heard the legends about the purest Almaty aqueduct. It is said that the famous Aport apple, which have fallen into the river in the mountain gardens, flowed to the children on its water. There is no need to be an expert to understand that ecology has deteriorated noticeably since that time. Almaty has expanded. The number of people in cars has grown at times. This affected the water quality. However, until now, Almaty water is considered the purest in Kazakhstan. We are near the big Almaty Lake. The lake is 1.6 kilometers in length and 1 kilometer in width. Its depth is up to 40 meters. The volume of water mass is about 14 million cubic meters. We have to find out where the water in Almaty comes from and why it is considered the best in the country. There are picturesque places in the Ili Alatau. The reservoir that is located at an altitude of more than 2,500 meters was formed as a result of the earthquake. The water in the lake melts, flows down here as a result of melting snow and glaciers, so even in summer its temperature does not exceed 8 degrees. High in the mountains, there is a huge glacier. It is called Almaty. Crystal water in the lake comes from that glacier. But every year, the volume of water decreases because the glacier has melted by almost half from its previous volume. So, according to pessimistic forecasts, the problem of drinking water threatens to become quite tangible in the foreseeable future. but optimists say that the city will have enough water if the issue of rational water use is solved in time. Of course, in large cities, water is not supplied to people immediately from a natural source. First of all, it goes through a complex purification process. In order to find out this process, we went to Almaty municipal waterworks. Almaty city consumes 140 million cubic meters of drinking water per year. 70% of the water comes from underground sources, 30% from mountain rivers. Water from the big and small Almaty rivers comes to this treatment plant. The water view in this pond is frightening. There are rubbish and pieces of some orange mud. But there is no need to worry, because the water passes a multi-stage filtration process. First, it is settled for 3 hours in this equipment. Then it is fed to the filter station. Then water is purified and chlorinated in a large building with many tanks. The water that is supplied to the city from the mountains passes through 4 stages of cleaning with different filters. At each stage, it is tested in a laboratory. Water is tested for 35 indicators in the laboratory. According to all the standards and indicators, it corresponds to the norms. And yet, we are interested in the main question. What is the difference between Almaty water and water in other cities of Kazakhstan? The water in Almaty is specific due to its supply from mountain rivers, the big and small Almaty rivers. It is pure water, but in other cities, water is taken from simple rivers. For example, in central Kazakhstan, from the Irtysh River. The difference between mountain water and water from the river can be seen with the naked eye. Almaty citizens are lucky. Not every region of Kazakhstan has open access to fresh water. Sometimes it is necessary to dig a deep well to get to fresh water. In the old days, it was not an easy work, if the groundwater was at a great depth. In many cases, the search for a convenient source of water turned into a matter of all life. Legends and stories were written about this. Here's one of them. A village inhabitant, Kasim, returned home. His grandson Aldiar looked sadly at him. He was compassionate for his grandfather, who came home exhausted every day. But at the same time, he felt uncomfortable because of the people talking about their family. The village people made fun of Kasim over his empty idea to find water in the dry lands of Maykuduk. People in these regions have never seen drinking water. The water was brought from other places. And then suddenly, the stubborn man with a pickaxe, who digged wells for many years with the hope to find water. People kept saying, this man decided to spend his life doing such a useless work. He would better raise his grandson. And looking at Aldiar, they added, the child is unhappy. He had lost his parents, and his grandfather spends his entire life waist deep in the mud. Nobody knew then. Was there any truth in people's words? Or maybe Kasim was really strange and did not want to admit it. He had an idea that there must certainly be water in the village of Maykuduk. All the signs pointed to this, and Kasim well understood these signs from his childhood. But people refused to believe it and did not want to spend time searching for the water. People left the village searching for the best life. And those who stayed no longer waited for a miracle. But Kasim did not sit idly by. He took the pickaxe and went to dig a well. Kasim digged empty holes in the ground, but only in vain. There was no water in them. He was wasting time and efforts. He also worked as a handyman. It was necessary to raise his grandson. The boy's parents died from disease. Kasim always returned home tired. Before going to sleep, he kept saying to Aldiar, "You will continue my work. No matter how tired you are, how busy you are, dig the well every day, at least a little." Maybe you'll get to the water one day. One day, Kasim came late in the evening and he was in a good mood. "Look, I'll show you," he said to his grandson and held out something in his hand. There were stones in his hand. Aldiar looked at his grandfather's, bewildered. "These are not simple stones," said Kasim. "They are from the bottom of the well, and they were wet when I dug them out." And this means that there is water there. A little more and I'll get to it. But the next morning, Kasim did not get up. He complained of pains in his back and chest. His grandson began to take care of him. A week passed, and Kasim was still ill. People began to come to his house, bringing flatbread and milk. They pitied the boy. Once Kasim called his grandson and said in a low voice, "Do not stop my work. Remember that I told you." Saying that, Kasim closed his eyes. Kasim was buried the next day. Aldiar was taken by his neighbors to be raised. In memory of his grandfather, he hid the stones in a secret place. People forgot about the well in the village. Time passed. Aldiar grew up and decided to leave the village too. But the night before his leaving, he saw a dream. His grandfather Kasim came to him and said, "Bring me some water and clean water from the well." "But there is no water there, Grandpa," said Aldiar. "Dig there and you will see. The stones are quite wet." A young man woke up and sat bewildered. He got into a secret place where the stones were hidden, took them, and it seemed to him that they were really wet. Or maybe his hands were wet from excitement. In the morning, without hesitation, Aldar took his grandfather's tool and went to the well. He was happy and ran to the people to tell them the good news. The water returned to Maykuduk. People did not wait long. The villagers took the shovels and started digging. By the evening, half of the well was already filled with water, and it kept coming. People were very happy. They congratulated each other. Many had tears in their eyes. After years, streams came up from the ground in the village. Some of them merged into the Soko River, and the scientists found a huge artesian underground basin with large reserves of deep pressure waters. Water has breathed new life to Maykuduk. After leaving the Almaty lake, we set off to the Ischium River in the dry steppe. This river is the only source of life, not only for plants and animals, but also for humans. It is from here that Kazakhstan's capital takes water for the needs of its residents. But first of all, the water accumulates in the reservoir. The Astana Reservoir, its former name Vyacheslavskaya, is a strategic facility. Access to its territory is closed. Water contamination by chemicals and other harmful substances must be strictly prevented, otherwise the whole city will suffer. The area of the flat water is 69 square meters. The length of the coastline is 120 kilometers. The maximum volume of water totals 410 million cubic meters. The capital consumes 211,000 cubic meters per day. If suddenly the water stops flowing into the reservoir, its reserves will be enough for 5 years. The purity of water is proved by the fact that the pond is inhabited by crayfish, a sure sign of good ecology. To make sure the water from the lake is supplied to the capital, a pumping station functions at the reservoir. Going down into the engine room, it is possible to hear the noise from 6 working electric motors. Power of each motor totals 280 kilowatts, that is about 400 horsepower. These iron units rotate the pumps, which pump water from the reservoir into 2 huge pipes. The diameter of each is almost 1.5 meters. Then the water is received from the pump filtering station, where it is purified and chlorinated. "1,000 kilometers to the south of the capital, there is the famous mineral spring in the world. And this is the famous well number 3. It was drilled in 1973. Its depth is 1,033 meters. The temperature of the water from the ground is 43 degrees. It has real healing properties. This water is known to all residents of Kazakhstan. After coming from the reservoir near the well, mineral water is supplied through pipes to the plant, where it is filtered, passes through bactericidal lamps, and then gasified. In order to start the gasification process, first we prepare the water. We have large refrigerators in which it is cooled to 12 to 15 degrees. At this temperature, the water receives gas. Bottles for mineral water are produced here. Bottles of different volume are made of plastic material. The finished packaging is washed and disinfected. Our workshop produces 8,000 bottles per hour. Here, the bottles are washed with mineral water. The washed container is bottled. Here, the bottle is filled with water and the lid is closed. The bottles are packed and sent straight to the stores. However, experts advise to pay attention to the date of water production. Even in a hermetically sealed container, liquid cannot retain good qualities for a long time. Kazakhstanis can be hardly blamed for the negligent use of water. We value the water, whether we drink tap water or buy it in the bottles. Water is the most valuable resource on Earth. We want to believe that all the people in the world will comprehend it.